No.
That you handed out on Monday?
I hope. I grabbed a big pile of stuff thinking I would just sort it out when I got it. Okay, what I do have, I've got Bach chorales. Who needs a Bach chorale?
Did you hand out homework on Monday?
For next week?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I have one if you have any extras?
Maybe. Anybody else? Bach chorale.
Buccaneers. There should be a thing named for that.
You got a Bach chorale?
Yeast.
Okay, we gotta wait a minute for Sam because he had interesting questions. Okay, next thing up, do I have any homework for next week?
I mean, we did.
What? Yeah. Turns out I have a lot of them. Who needs homework 7? I know we didn't have a homework 6. That was, Well, she let me hold her hand the other day.
here you go. Homework 6 was the optional homework.
Oh, yeah. I did some pictures.
Anybody else? Homework 7? Homework 7. Homework 7.
You guys kidding me? Get my pencil back.
I wonder if I started the recording.
So I think of
Well, no, it looks like it's actually just like record.
Rec means record.
yeah, it does.
Okay, welcome. It's Wednesday, March the something, 14th, 2018, MUT 213. And the last time we saw our heroes, we were discussing the Bach chorale, which we'll get back to. I'm going to give back the optional homework, which some unusual choices. Is that a word? That's a word. Okay, I felt like the front row here kind of nailed it, having probably realized we've done this example about 5 times already. Yes? Good job. I don't know that we have much to discuss on that page. I handed back the test on Monday, but I still have a lot here. I must not have gotten through the list completely. This may take the rest of my life to get all of these papers. Because for the first time all year, last Friday, every student was here taking the same thing. So I can't mention the time that that didn't happen, but I can mention the time that did happen. Anybody know Michael? What's with the tuba section? There they go there. What else? Okay, that was some stuff. Feels like we've done something already, doesn't it? Okay.
we got on the optional homework, since it's optional, as long as it's not like a horrible grade, it'll bring our grade up. It'll add to it versus taking away.
It's all of a math thing, yes. So if this grade is higher than a grade that you previously had on a paper, which is true,
Okay.
I'm going to take away one grade. So if you did the optional homework, it doesn't have to be that grade that gets took away. Many people chose to have the optional one be the
Oh, I'd rather.
drop. Huh?
Can we tell you, or you just know?
Hmm?
Can you-
Only a few people turned in the optional homework, that's why I know that most people did not choose
Oh, I did.
to make a,
Better grade.
to drop that zero. Alright, Kyle, it's your turn to be useful today. Shut the door before I get fired. All things in higher education is meant to keep us afraid, right? We're afraid of this, afraid of that. I used to be afraid of my colleagues. Afraid of the students now. Getting old. Okay. It's your choice today. Shall we continue with the chorale? Very much fun. I was
Yes.
waiting for you, Sam. 2, do we do some part writing of a chromatic sense? Or 3, do some free counterpoint in a diatonic sense?
Corral.
Chorale.
Corral.
I guess it only matters what Bailey wants. What is it?
We can do the crowd.
See, she will never just like say. She'll go with the trend. How about you, Greg? Corral! Okay, we've heard from both sides of the continent now. Okay, Sam brought up an interesting point after class the other day, and most of you chose not to stick around to hear what Sam had to say. I guess that's why I almost didn't show up today. All right, never mind all that. Now, I think the point in question was in this second full measure, it does give a real hard charge to E. Okay, and you saw me analyze it as 5, what was this?
5, 6, 5, 4.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I forget, we're in the key of A, yes?
Yeah, A minor.
So that's an altered 1 chord there.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this is the 2 chord, yes?
Yeah, 5, 6, 5, 5.
So that's 5, 6, 5 of 5. Now, let's think in the, would you prefer C minor or A minor for E's? We're just gonna take a minute to look at this.
A minor.
A minor key? Okay, that's the same key we're in here. What if we had this in A minor, we would think of it as 4, 5, 1, right? So this 4 chord is kind of borrowed, but it's also kind of melodic minor, yeah? Okay. And it is a dominant 7th chord in this situation. I probably need to work out the, anyway, let's do the figured bass here. Pretend that could be something like that. Now, The only way this chord goes to this chord is kind of deceptively, but since we're not in a root position, it's not exactly like deception. Did I spell those notes right? Yes, I did. Okay. So this chord is D7 in a jazzy kind of parlance, E7 to Amen. All right, we're all going jazzy now, right? But it's in first inversion, so that doesn't make any sense anymore. Anyway. So what is true? Its roots a second apart in the same inversion. But we also have things such as a tritone. Yes?
Yeah.
So this tritone needs, this note here is still going to go there like that.
That's not what
Well, we're not talking about Bach now. We're talking about basic voice leading patterns. Now, what is the next thing we need in this chord? We need an E, a G sharp, a B, D. Excellent. Excellent. So I would keep the common tone, don't you think it thou? And then probably this. Now, in a way, my tritone gets relieved or gets resolved. My contrary motion kind of tenant is satisfied, and it makes sense with something that we've heard, even though it doesn't really sound like. Okay, so let's pretend we go through A minor once, and now somehow we magically are transported to this chord. Now we would all feel like that made sense to our tonic, tonal diatonic ears, even though that 5/7 would do that if it were dominant tonic, right? Now where would that might have come from? What chord do we want to hear before this D7 chord? Well, maybe. We normally don't write second inversion chords except in the 4 instances or the 5 instances that we have before. Dissonant 6/4 chords in the 1 consonant 6/4 chord, so it might even be, I don't think it's a 5 chord there though. Maybe just a 1 chord. Maybe a 1 chord like this. I'm going to go with that. So, in reality, it's 1, 4, 5, 1. Yes? But it's much more colorful than that. Now, Bach does the same thing towards this 5 chord here. And that's why it seems so strongly tonicized, as Sam was indicating. So let's here get back to what it actually sounds like. And because the chorales happen so harmonically quickly, sometimes it is hard to just say this is what this is. Immediately, Bach gives us the subtonic. So he doesn't like give us that immediately, so maybe it is a little ambiguous. That's not right. Let's do that measure again. Modulation or secondary function? If it modulated, where did it modulate? Let's start over. The last chord before the fermata is also a truckload of fun too. I love that chord. It gives a little I Love Lucy. Say we're in the key of C. I think Bob gives his version of the I Love Lucy ending right there by Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Okay, so Sam, where does it modulate? Sam doesn't want to say. Anybody want to say? What is a modulation in a common chord? Dr. Durant will tell us all now. Are we ready? And for those of you watching at home, a common chord or pivot chord modulation has one chord that is common to both keys. So, if it is the key of E and the key of A, what are our common chords? One chord is the four. Five is, well, it's not common though.
Yeah, not really.
Not so much, right. Okay. Now, what happens in a common chord modulation? Would we like the drum of the drum bass? What does that common chord generally serve as? What does that common pivot chord, same note chord, name thing, what does it function as?
It's like a dominant.
It's not like a dominant.
Predominant.
It functions as a predominant in the new key. Do you need a chorale, Sam?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
And Ginger.
And you? Okay. And you? Jake, you gotta have your chorale, because this is the last one I got. I don't have it memorized. I tried, but then when I played it for my teacher, I got all nervous and I had to start over a bunch. Okay, is there a pivot chord that could function in this, and would that make it qualify for confirming phrase to make it a modulation? Ooh. Okay,
I think so.
Good one.
so
That second.
do you think we're going to E major or E minor?
There's a lot of X's.
If it's modulating, is it modulating E major or E minor?
E minor?
Is E major a closely related key?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. No, wait. A minor.
Yes. No. God. No.
Okay, two choices?
No.
Choose carefully.
No.
One's wrong. Okay. Let me tell you what I'm talking about, then we'll know what we're talking about. Here's the first chord, which is the anacrusis to this piece. We're all good there, right? We all got that as one with the passing
Yep.
tone to a briefly 6-7 chord moving to 4-6-5, moving to 2-5 with the suspension, 5-7, 1. Yes?
Yes.
Everybody agree that's 1? Everybody cool with that? Everybody cool? Super cool? Gnarly cool? Now life is different. Briefly right there, on the 4th beat, we have a dominant 7th chord without a 5th. Yes? Great. Do we see the 4th beat? There's a B in the bass, a D sharp in the tenor, a suspended A and a B.
Yes.
Right? So that's not really 2 in the key of A so much anymore.
7-6.
It is a 5-7 type chord in the key of E. Or 5-7 of 5. What does the G make? Maybe nothing, but it does form a chord. Can anybody spell this chord? Does anyone, let me ask this, does anyone know where we are
Yes.
in the music? Okay. Let me use some visual aids. All right, we're right here, right there, right there. So the actual note in question, for now, if we're staying consistent here, this would be 5 of 5. We may change this to E. Can we, through the power of transposition and modulation, which is it? Transposition and modulation.
Modulation.
It is modulation.
On Monday, we said that chord, the G, B, D sharp chord, the 5 of 5, we said that was a major 7 augmented in the first number.
Someone lied, because clearly, herely, this is B, D sharp, B, B, D sharp, A, which is an incomplete 5-7 chord.
Yeah, the G is just a passing.
Yeah, so somebody missed that the other day. I don't know who that was. Who was
I think it
teaching
was
that?
me.
Who was teaching that day?
I think it
Was
was
Greg teaching? Greg
It
was
sounds like
teaching.
something.
It's on you, Greg.
It is, I'm sorry,
I was distracted because of my issues. I've had issues. Okay, because this does look like a suspension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And in reality, it is 7 to 6, isn't it? And if it's gonna be a parenthetical chord there, G, B, D sharp and an A?
Yeah.
No, there's no A. Who said that?
You.
G, B, D sharp. G, B, D sharp. G, B, D sharp. That's an augmented,
7 chord.
yeah, that's what we said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
C.
in first inversion,
Yes.
there's our 6. Now I need to make this a plus sign, right? On that side of the chord. Okay. That doesn't seem to be like much of a chord, does it? Which seems to be more efficient harmonically? Maybe the 5/7 chord type deal? Now, but what that does is set up an actual chain of suspensions. Okay, now that is again looking like a suspension, but again it's a 5/7 type chord. Isn't that beautiful and amazing? Heck yeah, it is. All right, so we have that there, and then when it moves to the F sharp, to the E, now, here's the thing. What if it is not an E major but E minor? That would make more sense. The second most common modulation in the minor mode in the Baroque era was 1 to the minor dominant. The first being 1 to the relative major. You've heard me say this before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would fit in our mold, and then having a raised third at the cadence is not beyond our thinking in terms of Picardy third kind of situations. And as Sam was mentioning the other day, could be some other explanations for that. So now, are we going to want to choose to harmonize this? Okay, so if we did harmonize that, it would be F sharp A, C sharp E. F sharp A, C sharp E.
Yep.
F sharp A, C sharp E, minor minor 7 chord.
Mm-hmm.
But not really in A minor, is it?
Nope.
So, I think it's time to modulate. The time is now to modulate. Because we get into secondary functions of secondary functions, and there's no such thing as that. Does it make sense? Okay. All right, so that means that is 5. And what is this? 3 is augmented 3 chord, something we might have heard of before in the minor mode.
Yo.
Augmented 364, right? That's a really weird chord, isn't it? Okay, what does make that 4 there? I don't see any 4. G, B, oh, that's 6/5. Sorry, I lied. Okay, so we get to an augmented 3 chord, then we get to a major 4 chord, 4/6/5, yes? Are we good there? If that's 4/65, what is that? 2/6? 2/6/4? But only very briefly. So only very briefly would that be 2/6/4. And then it goes back to an E, which is in the chord. And so that is kind of a passing, but it's remarkable in that we want to see what these This 5 to 4 situation was there, the 7 to 6 situation is there. This is, if there's anything in analysis that is kind of my thing, it's called micro-analysis, which is the analysis within the beat. So to determine underlying harmonic motion within non-harmonic tone scenarios. That's why I often mark things parenthetically and non-harmonic tones at the same time. Okay? Then you can make a determination of what is stronger. Now, so this is no longer 5, 6, 5 or 5, it's just big boy 5, 6, 5, yes? And there's other notes too. In this place here, this is where all of this intricate motion stops, doesn't it? It just stops right there. The only motion we have is a repeated F sharp, which is not anything to do with A minor. Okay? So that brings us to this. All right. There's your 9/8, right? 9/8. But here comes Mr. Interesting 7. And that's a natural note, right? Is there a natural 7 in the key of E minor? Kind of and kind of not. So something else is happening there, and then we get to the C natural. Now what's interesting to me here is Bach has cross relationships between the C sharp there and the D sharp there. The ascending minor mode raises those notes. The descending minor mode lowers those notes. Yes? But that's not Bach. The 3 forms of the minor scale have nothing to do with music. It is a theoretical construct, or theorist made it up. And we know as pianists and musicians, instrumentalists, you never see those scales in music. You see, that's why I always call it the minor mode, because it encompasses this minorness, but there's a lot going on there. We're never in the key of C minor melodic. You know, it's just something that you learn to go to AMTA auditions or whatever. That's Music Teachers Association things. And here, sophomore qualifying, you got to play all your scales. Yes. Piano proficiency, how many, do you have to play all your scales? All 12 major and minor scales? All 3 forms of the minor scale? You have to know them all the way up to C flat major and all that stuff. Not quite C flat. B major. What did y'all do that yet? What does she typically ask? Does she ask F sharp minor or?
She should have put all the scales on, like different white note and
take a shot and then knock it back.
Yeah.
Take a shot and then have your choice chaser. I'll chase it with B flat minor. Oh! What was it talking about? The minor mode. Okay, so 8/7. Now we have this whole 6 scenario, and then we get here. So my thought is our cadence is here, and it would be an IAC. Okay? That's an IAC cadence. This is an elongation of the cadence to the fermata. Now, let's figure this out in a real way. Like something that will make sense and not sound all Dr. Durante and all that kind of business. So here we have 1, 1. If I go to the back of the room, I'll be totally confused just like everyone else. Okay, what happens between beat 3 here and beat 1 here? Let me sum it up for you. You ready for this? Nothing happens. Okay, so what happens in a global sense is nothing. What happens in a local sense is the following. Well, that looks like a passing tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That is a suspension. That all looks like it's passing down to B to a chord tone, yes? So we're really not, and there's more! This also passing, it's just that these things make things. This just suspends things, so this is not a thing. That's a suspension. Yep.
Yep.
Weakest of all the suspensions, the 9/8. Why is it weak? Because the note of resolution is present while the suspension is present.
Yeah.
That's why it's the weakest. So in the context of all of this is passing, we don't have to think so much about it as a chord. But that would not make it microanalysis now, would it? No, it would not. Okay, so here we have a 5/7 chord, a 5/7 chord. Let's pretend that was a 5/7 chord. What would happen? 2 would move to 1, yeah? 4 would move to 3. So if it is 5/7, it's got to be 507 of 4, doesn't it? But only ever so briefly. Now, what other than 4 could it resolve to? If it's 5/7 of 4, resolution could be to 4, or alternatively, dun, 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 dun. What am I talking about? Not quite. I'm talking about dominant. Let's think of it in a more simple state. 5 goes to what? 1. What else does 5 go to? 6. 5 of 4 goes to 4. What else does it go to? What's deception of 5 of 4? Y'all who are so math inclined. Shall we do the math? Let's do it. Let's do it. 6 is, wait. 1 is to 6 as 4 is to,
3.
oh my gosh.
5.
1 is to 6. Okay, let's do this.
8.
What if I added 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is a 9?
2.
It's 2! It's 2! No? 1 is to 6 as 4 is to 2.
Oh, that's the yellow.
Okay,
Yellow is the banana.
here we go.
Green is.
Disregarding the E. What the hell is that card? 2? 2 in the key of E? Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
So really with the bass note, it is 2, 4, 2. 2, 4, 2. So,
Green is the card.
back to 1. Okay, so do we see how microanalysis works on that level? So, that wasn't really what I came to first. I was doing something else on Monday, right? Gonna have to share it with all of us.
Okay,
Where is that?
that's the beginning point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're talking about the end.
Yeah, I think at this rate we'll probably get there around September. Any other questions about that? Wow, that took a long time, didn't it? We didn't exactly get out of the gate super fast, did we? 9:05. Ooh, boy. We're not Rocky paced here, are we? Let's do another chord because this is super fun. I love this stuff. Normally I'm glad that at least 1 or 2 people likes analysis. Normally,
Yeah, it's fun.
like the juniors, man, it's like they're comatose within 15 minutes. Absolutely comatose. And you'll hear a little plaintive cry. Mama! Back of the room. Okay, now, what happens next? Just look at it with your eye face and tell me what key we're in.
Where?
After what we just did. That would be measure 3, beat 2.
I go back to A minor.
Yeah, we're in A minor, it's kind of. No, we are.
Well, we do cadence in A with the Pinkerton third.
It's like that whole measure 3s in D minor. Because it's just pretty much just.
Well, how would you account for the first chord? What is the first chord?
7 of 4.
There's only 2 notes there, though. No, it's 3 notes.
Which chord?
Right after the fermata.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
I put it to 6, but it's also a 3 in minor.
Well, that's.
because.
if we have modulated, we need to determine to the best of our abilities as humans, what kind of modulation is it? And if we didn't modulate in the first place, we don't have to modulate back, do we?
Sure. I feel like that whole measure is 4, cause the first chord is just C sharp, E, G.
Well, we've had an indication of that D back here. And then this was substituting, never mind, let's not get too involved in that, sorry. I'm intentionally not playing it just yet, so we can use our, feels like I'm doing something, just copying notes on the board. Good job, excellent teaching. Evaluations went up today. Before I had tenure, I would always